Okay, so just
Yeah.
try to imagine this for a second. You're a Hollywood star, you're known for comedy, for improv, and you're suddenly in the middle of this just insane political drama.
Right. And you think, I need a break. So you fly to Italy, for some peace.
You think you've escaped the chaos of your husband's campaign,
Yeah.
and then the phone rings.
And that phone call, which Cheryl Hines details in her memoir, Unscripted,
Okay.
well, it wasn't just some small campaign issue. It was the moment her whole world just collided.
It really was. The call was from her husband, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's warning her that the press is, in his words, running wild with a story. An alleged sexting scandal with a journalist.
And for Hines, that wasn't just about public image. That call kicked off one of two massive crises she had to deal with as a political spouse.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack those two traumas using her own words. First, there's the emotional trauma of, feeling betrayed.
And then the physical trauma of the political dread, a reaction so extreme it literally sent her body into rebellion.
This is such a unique look at the incredible cost of fame when it slams into high-stakes politics. Let's start where she did. In Italy, facing that first crisis. The headline here really has to be the scandal that made her feel unimportant.
Yeah. So she's on vacation with her daughters, and the call comes through. RFK Jr. explains the story, and he's very clear that it was just ambiguous digital stuff. He says it was never physical.
But what's so wild is her initial reaction.
It's fascinating. She says her first feeling was just indifference.
Indifference. I mean, think about that. For most people, that's devastating news. But for her, the bar for chaos was already, it was sky high.
It was. She'd already been through months, even years of just relentless negative press, especially, around his views on vaccines. She felt like she was a liability to him.
And he felt the same way about her career, which led to this unbelievable moment she writes about.
The fake separation.
A fake separation. He actually suggested they pretend to separate just to protect her acting career from all the political backlash.
I know. When you hear that, you understand the level of pressure they were under. It was so extreme that a fake divorce seemed like a logical solution.
It puts everything into perspective. So when this sexting news breaks, she at first just tries to file it away as another
invasive consequence of public life. She was used to the public storm. But being so far away, in Italy, that's what made it worse.
Right. She wrote that the longer she was there, the more the swirl of headlines, rumors, and insinuations just became. Well, she said it was upsetting and overwhelming.
And that's when it shifted. It stopped being about the outside noise.
It became internal. She wrote that she had hit a wall. And the real pain wasn't the public story. It was the feeling, and this is her word, of being unimportant to him.
That's the core of it. Tolerating the political madness is one thing, but feeling devalued by your partner, that's something else entirely. She said she felt, for the first time, like it was the end of the line for me.
And that's
Yeah.
a huge shift from playing a role to questioning the entire marriage. When she got back home, she said she felt so distant from him.
It sounds like it all came down to one thing.
Their family.
Their blended family, exactly. She wrote, the only threads that were connecting me to him were directly tied to all of our kids. So she decided to try.
And the way they repaired things sounds less like a huge emotional fight and more like a strategic debrief.
It does, a truth-finding mission. She says they spent days just locking ourselves in our room and drilling down on the truth, figuring out what was real and what was rumor.
It's very clinical.
But she says that's what tightened our ties that bind. It suggests that for a partnership like theirs, under that kind of strain, brutal honesty is the only way back.
But that emotional stress, as intense as it was, wasn't even the whole story. Her body was about to stage its own protest against the political anxiety, a physical breakdown that landed her in the ER. Okay, so let's get into this physical crisis. We're calling this the stress so severe, her body rebelled.
And this is where the history of the Kennedy name really becomes a physical weight for her. She was living with this constant gnawing anxiety.
Of course. She said that people would ask her almost every single day, are you worried about him getting shot like his father and like his uncle?
I mean, can you imagine carrying that around? That specific fear? It's this historical echo of violence that's always there.
And on top of that, there was the security issue. She said she found it stressful that he didn't have Secret Service protection for months.
So that constant worry was just her baseline. And then, in July 2024, it tipped over into an acute crisis. RFK Jr. asks her to meet him in Milwaukee.
And the timing here is just,
Yeah.
it's everything. This is right after Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania.
Exactly. So that abstract historical fear, it suddenly becomes very real and very immediate.
So she walks into this meeting with a man who was literally just shot at to talk about protecting her husband, whose family is defined by political assassinations. The tension must have been unbearable.
She describes the scene. She's in this hotel suite. She shakes hands with Trump, and he's the one who says what she's been fearing.
He validates the threat.
Completely. He just survived it himself.
Yeah.
He says Kennedy absolutely needs Secret Service, and he tells his staff to make it happen right then and there.
And that moment of validation from that person is what breaks her. What was her body's immediate reaction?
It was instant. She said, "The moment I stepped out of the hotel suite, I broke out into hives." And she makes a point of saying she had never had hives before in her life.
They just spread all over her arms and abdomen.
And it got worse. As they kept talking about security, her bottom lip had swelled to the size of a baby carrot.
Wow. That's such a specific visceral image.
It is. She said she looked like a casualty from Botched. Her body was physically screaming the danger that her mind was trying to manage.
So she had to get medical help right away.
Yeah, she went to a walk-in emergency facility. They ran tests, ruled out an allergy.
So was stress.
100%. The doctor told her the reaction was a direct result of extreme stress. And his advice was, well, it was impossible. He said, try to find a way to not be so stressed.
Right. Easy for him to say.
He told her, your body is trying to tell you something. So she flew home with an EpiPen and steroids, trying to hide her swollen face. Her own body had become the evidence of the political danger.
It just shows the cost isn't just mental. It is physical. It requires an EpiPen.
And if her physical health was under attack, her social life was about to collapse too, especially after the next big political shift.
So she's navigated the emotional crisis. She's managed the physical one. But the biggest price was still coming. This is the social fallout. After RFK Jr. pivots from an independent change to endorsing Donald Trump and then accepting the job of Secretary of Health and Human Services.
A new headline for a new reality, the price of the pivot, losing Hollywood friends over Trump.
And that pivot, for her, was a total betrayal of her own political identity. She's a lifelong Democrat. She admitted she was very guarded about it all.
Even RFK Jr. acknowledged how tough it was on her. He said publicly the endorsement was not something that she ever encouraged.
So she's forced into this new identity overnight, and the social cost was immediate. You see it perfectly in the example with her friend, the comedian Tig Notaro.
It's such a clear symbol of that Hollywood-DC collision. Tig Notaro said she just never heard from her again after the endorsement. A 30-year friendship. Gone.
30 years, just erased by politics. And Hines says this happened with a lot of people. She was grateful for friends who'd call and say, I can't believe this is happening, even if they disagreed.
But she said it was deeply painful when people she'd known for decades would just stop talking to me altogether.
That silence.
Yeah.
That's its own kind of social punishment.
And it wasn't just friends. The Kennedy family itself was publicly feuding. She said she was angry and surprised when his cousin, Caroline Kennedy, publicly urged the Senate to reject his nomination.
So the family drama becomes a national political story. She's having to deal with social media comments from Caroline's son, Jack Schlossberg. She's defending her husband against his own family in public.
All of this pressure, it forces you to adapt. And she has. She's now the DC spouse, living in Georgetown, fully integrated into this new world.
Right, you see it in her activities. She's attending cabinet spouse meetings on ethics. She's playing the part.
And she's adopted the strategy of public praise for her new environment. She talks about the new glamour in DC and says the Republicans have been nice to me.
And then there's that line about Melania Trump.
Oh, yeah, saying, when Melania Trump is setting the bar, that's high. That's a very strategic compliment, designed to show she's all in.
And part of being all in is managing his, let's call it his eccentric public image.
She's so good at it. She uses her comedy skills as a defense mechanism, like her famous joke about the brainworm.
That it ate just a little bit of his brain and died, so don't worry.
Right. It downplays a serious health issue and makes him seem quirky. Not alarming. Same thing with her explanation for why he works out in jeans.
She says he just prioritizes the workout and doesn't care what he looks like.
It's all part of the job now. She's traded her old Hollywood identity for the role of a highly strategic political partner. It's constant brand management.
When you lay it all out, It's just this extraordinary layered cost. The emotional betrayal, the physical breakdown, the social sacrifice. Her memoir really frames this whole journey as a lesson in marital fortitude.
It's all about fortitude. And the survival of their marriage, it seems, wasn't based on some romantic ideal. It was built on constant active management, a strategy.
You can see that in the advice she gives for navigating political differences in a relationship.
You really can. Her advice is very telling. She says you should start by saying, we might end up agreeing to disagree.
And then, crucially, to step away when things get heated.
Exactly. To say, I can feel myself heating up and I don't want to be in that space with you. It suggests that to keep the marriage intact, you have to constantly create emotional distance. You have to retreat from conflict before it even starts.
The conversation itself has to be managed. The marriage becomes this strategic contract that's built to withstand shocks, not a place for, totally unfiltered emotion.
And that, I think, leaves you with the final question from her story. When a marriage is under that kind of extreme, polarizing threat, does that constant emotional management stop being a strategy and just become the only way to show you're still loyal?
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.